So for those of you here last time, we did a little bit about how we generate ideas, and this time we're going to take it that next stage, which is how we really look at knowing our market and who our competitors are. So typically we need to look at some generic questions, and in market research terms, these would typically be the questions we're looking at. So how large is the market? Is the market growing or shrinking? Are there any barriers to entering that market, that particular industry? Who are your competitors? Probably one of the biggest key ones that you can think about when starting up. What goods or servicing are they offering? So we try and look at it in terms of a benchmark. What do they offer? How good are they at offering it? How does that compare to yours? And more importantly, how does that compare to what the customers would like, your potential customers? Who are your customers? What do they actually want? And for me, again, another important one, where are they likely to buy it from? There's been lots of cases where people have started business ideas and put things available online without being able to translate the quality of that item online or without it being necessarily suitable for sale online. Now, I know a lot of you are from the design crafts, and it's that quality aspect, it's that touch and feel, that inability to touch and feel over the web that's going to be quite important for some of you lot. So most owner managers, most business owners, most people starting a business will not really do any market research first. They will react on a market demand. They will react on an immediate impulse of something that people necessarily want there and then, rather than trying to look into the future and plan it more efficiently. But simple common sense tells us that the more we know about what we're trying to get into, the more we know about our idea, our competitors, what wider views are, the better and more successful our venture will be. So there's kind of 4 levels with really what we want to find out. Market research isn't necessarily just about trying to find out what's going on with our customers or our potential customers. It's about these traditional 4 levels. So at the bottom, we need to know what our customers are all about. We need to identify who our customers are. We then look at our competition. We first need to identify our competition and then really drill down into what our competition are doing. We look at the overall industry, the design craft sector, or whichever sector you're planning to get into, what's going on across that sector, and then we look at the wider world. What wider world impacts will have that necessarily effect on what we're trying to do. And we mentioned some of that last time in terms of looking at it in terms of PESEL, in order to look at those particular factors. So, customers, who are they? What do they want? What do they prefer? What are they prepared to pay? You know, a lot of what you're going to do, there's no real benchmark into what you can charge. So within the design crafts field, one of the most difficult things that you're going to go and do is price. If you're making a ceramic model, how can you price that compared to another ceramic model? One ceramic model might be mass produced and they can churn out 20,000 units a day, but yours has been 20 hours in design and manufacture. You can't price them together. So one of the most important things that you're going to undertake is price research. How are you going to price your products most effectively? We need to know what customers and potential consumers like about your product, what they dislike about your product, and how frequently are they likely to buy. This will all help you shape your business, your forecasts, and how profitable, whether you're going to make any money at the end of the year, your forecast will, your business will be. We can also take frequency in a slightly different sense and look at seasonality. And what we mean is by seasonality is when will people buy it in the time of year? So again, a lot of you are doing design crafts. Much of that could be given as gifts. If it's a gift occasion, one of the biggest gift occasions is coming up, Christmas. So look at the seasonal aspects of what you're doing as well, or the potential seasonal aspects of what you're doing. But most importantly, when you're doing customer research, don't waste your time seeking views on of people that will not buy your products. Some of you will no doubt have been accosted in town, in the town centre, by researchers with clipboards that ask your views about particular products or ask your views about typical things. Some of you will have, some of you won't. Sometimes you'll walk past someone, sometimes they'll grab you. They grab you because you fit the particular criteria of the customer that they want information about, the customer that they want to research into, get your views on. The reason they don't contact you is that you don't fit. So it's important that you really identify who your customers are going to be and ask their views rather than asking Joe Bloggs out there, rather than just asking your university course mates, rather than asking your flatmates. They will all give you skewed viewpoints. So it's important that you get a non-skewed or unbiased account. So just touching on this, because in future sessions we're going to go into a little bit more detail on this. But this is how we typically find out or work through our target market. This is how we work out who we think our customers will be. This is for B2C, so business to customer. So you as a business selling to individual customers, not you as a business selling to another business. So Topshop sells B2C. Topshop as a business sells to individual customers. People selling their clothes to Topshop is a business to business transaction. Happy with that? Good. So what we do is that we look at it from three generic points of view. So behavioural aspects, psychographics and profile. Profile is the easiest one to describe. So we've got demographics, measurable statistics about people. We can identify our customers through measurable statistics. Gender, age, ethnicity, whether they've got children or not. All those things are easily measurable. Some of you may have heard acronyms like dinkies and skiers. They're commonly used terms in marketing. Skiers is spending kids' inheritance. So people like my parents who are travelling the world currently in Australia, spending my inheritance, which I'm rather upset about. 60-year-olds, 6-year-old plus that have that high level of disposable income. That's the key term. High level of disposable income, but they're going out and spending it. Then dinkies, just to give you the other example, is double income, no kids. So for any of you that are living with a partner and have those two incomes, you're seen as having quite high levels of disposable income because they're double income, no kids. The no kids aren't the ones that are sucking the living daylights out of your finances. And I can say that with 2 children. So we look at these stereotypical groups and we try and identify the particular demographics, like I say, age, disposable income, in some cases, education level. We can look at social economic groups. So some of you will have seen described A to E in terms of social economic groups. And in fact, there was a bit of research about 6 months ago by the BBC that put in additional groups in there. And in essence, that's looking at lower class, middle class, upper class, those sorts of people. So we are, again, stereotyping by saying we're aiming at, say, middle class people for our products, or we're aiming at lower class people for our products. And then geographics, where are they? Where are they? If you're online, you've got to account for the fact that you could be international rather than just local. These get into a little bit more complication, but we're talking about lifestyle preferences. Are they the Green Welly Country Brigade that walk their dog every Sunday morning through muddy fields? Or are they the urban dwellers that go out for posh meals of an evening and live in their high-rise flat? More difficult to assess, more difficult to ascertain. These go into real marketing theory, but actually some of them are quite fascinating. So what are the benefits that people will seek from your items, from your products, your services? What is the purchase occasion, which we've already touched upon in terms of perhaps a lot of you, the purchase occasion will be gifts. If so, we've got to look at gift buying occasions, Valentine's Day, birthdays, weddings, Christmas. What will be the typical usage? Will it be one use and throw away, in which case you've got the opportunity to gain a lot of repeat custom? Or is it one use and it will last every 5 years? So a washing machine or a car or things like that. And then this is the key one for me. This is the one that I find most fascinating, which is perceptions and beliefs. And usually at this point I look around the room to see if I've got a particular victim. And strangely, doing this a year ago or 2 years ago, it was rather obvious. And there was a lot of students decked out in super dry clothing and all sorts. That seemed to be the big thing. And the perception and belief meant we have to wear super dry clothing in order to fit in and look cool, which I know comes strange from an old chap like me. But that's the perception and belief. And for the chaps, or again, not meaning to sound sexist, but the chaps wearing football boots, they wear Nike football boots because they believe they can play football like Wayne Rooney. Not necessarily look like him, but certainly play football like him. That's all perceptions and beliefs is all about. And this is where we get things like celebrity endorsement. So if you're making goods, if you're making clothing that is draped on a celebrity, then that's great, because the perception and belief means that if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. It's a false perception, but mostly that's what we accept these days. So that's the fascinating one. And actually companies like Nike, Adidas spend millions and millions of pounds on celebrity endorsement. You know, you look at what was Nike and the Tiger Woods relationship. Tiger Woods was one of the most highly paid sportsmen in the world because of the celebrity, because of the Nike brand that was attached to him. That all disappeared after his little issue with infidelity, I understand, or possible infidelity. How we look at it from a B2B perspective, so business to business, well, very similar to B2C in terms of we can look at it from geographics, we can look at it from traditional kind of measurable statistics. So what is the company size? Do they have lots of branches? Are they just an independent? So if you were selling your craft items, perhaps, again, to take a generic example, to another business, so to a shop, are you looking at independents with just one shop, or are you looking at the national chains like John Lewis that have many shops? So who are you planning to sell your items to? The larger the company, traditionally, the harder it will be to sell them into. And then the industry sector, are you targeting a particular sector? And again, a lot of you from design crafts will be looking at the retail sector. So that's how we look at it from a macro side of things. Micro side of things, a lot more complicated. Things like the decision-making process. So who makes the decision within a larger organisation? So at DMU, there are set procurement guidelines, which means certain individuals can spend up to, say, £500 by just getting 3 quotes. Then it'll have to go to a more serious process of 3 formal quotations. And then it goes even further when it's above £20,000, and it has to go to something called a written tender. So what is the decision-making process? What is the decision-making structure? Who can make the decision? Who is the person to target that can actually make the decision? Again, how senior do you need to target your products to? But again, we'll touch on that more in future weeks. So we've looked at who our potential customers are. We need to identify them, and then we need to ask questions to them. We then need to think about who our competition are, who our competition is. And the important things for you guys is all about knowing what they do, what they charge, what are their services that they give out, Without knowing that, it's really difficult to identify what price you can afford to charge for the services you offer. How are you different to them? Unless you know what they do, there is no way of knowing how different you are. The reason I would buy from you as opposed to other people out there, why would I do that? And it's called a unique selling proposition. But without knowing everything about your competitors, you're never going to know what your USP is, your unique selling proposition is. So we've got to identify who our competitors are. And there are three types, traditional types of competition. So you have direct competition. So taking our former example of someone making a ceramic decorative ornament. So there will be people, individuals, like some of you, that make individual decorative ornaments and sell them directly online or via, say, Etsy. They would be your direct competition if you are doing exactly the same. Your indirect competition are people that sell similar style of things, but say mass-produced instead of bespoke. So you might find it from Next or IKEA or anywhere like that. That would be indirect competition. Those that offer similar products, but in a slightly different way. So the slightly different way in this example is being mass-produced. And then there are the final lot that offer slightly different products, but deliver them in the same way. So I'll give you two examples. Royal Mail, the postal services. Direct competition, technically they have no direct competition for letters. But they do have, Royal Mail have a complete monopoly on letter deliveries in this country, as it currently stands. Royal Mail, though, have direct competition when it comes to parcels, which is where their parcels business is really struggling, although they do benefit from not being able to charge VAT, which seems rather strange. But anyway, UPS, any of the Amazon now do their own deliveries. So that is direct competition for the Royal Mail. The biggest indirect competition, though, for Royal Mail and its letters business is, thank you, email. If you look at the stats of letters being delivered by the Royal Mail over the period since email has been introduced, it has dropped off a cliff. So that's indirect competition. Royal Mail didn't see it coming, and it really affected their business. And it was interesting to see that, a slight aside, interesting to see how well the flotation of Royal Mail did. Another obvious one, more obvious one, an easier one to explain is on the slide. So Blockbuster, who incidentally finally went into administration a couple of weeks ago, so are closing the business in the UK, did so in the US some time ago, have really struggled in its traditional business. Its core business was renting DVDs, renting Blu-ray, renting VHS, for those of you old enough to remember. However, market share was taken from them by an indirect competitor, someone offering the same service but in a slightly different way. So Love Film, as it was, sending out physical DVDs, so you're still getting the rental DVD, but it's being posted to you. And it's a membership provision rather than doing it ad hoc as you used to with Blockbuster. So they lost original market share to Love Film as was. Then Netflix came into the competition and deliver it now instantly via the internet. Love Film have copied. Love Film do exactly the same thing. So why do we bother going physically to a DVD rental store anymore when we can access it all online or get them posted to us? They're both competitors to Blockbuster, but offer it in a different way, and actually offering it in a better way, which is why Blockbuster are going out of business. There are, however, though, two others. Sky Movies or Channel 4 Movies, whatever it might be, E4 Movies, Film 4, that's the right one, sorry. Film 4 and the cinema. So we can get our movies now by paying a subscription to Sky Movies or actually pay-per-view through our Skybox. We can also go to the cinema. We're still getting the same film experience, but in a slightly different way. So we need to decide who our competitors are. And you will find that there are a range. So anyone that says that they do not have competitors has either got something really, really groundbreaking, and I mean really groundbreaking, or just hasn't looked hard enough. You will all have competitors. And what we do to assess who our competitors are is that we benchmark them. So we find out enough about what they're doing in order to score them. And I apologise if you can't see the factors on the sheets. They're all available on SlideShare, incidentally. Under, it's my account, isn't it? My individual account. So look, if you use SlideShare, just search under my name, Stuart Hartley, and they're all on there that you can use. So anyway, we look at any particular factors that are relevant to your business and your business idea. These are just examples, and you don't have to use them all. We decide what factors are going to be important for our business. So you might find range of products, price, quality of the products, all as being important factors. We look at those factors and we mark our competitors out of 10, out of 5, whatever it might be, as long as it's the same. 10 being good, 1 being poor. So from your perception and your analysis and your research, simply mark them out of 10 for those factors. Do a number. There's 2 examples on here, but just do as many as you can. The more you can, the better your research is. And then we look at you as a business. So under the section of me, you mark yourself. Now don't lie, because you're only lying to yourself. There's no other person involved in this. So if you're going to do this assessment, do it honestly. And you do it honestly on your own. And judge where you're good and where you're bad versus your competitors. And that's usually where a competitor analysis ends. I, however, argue that we should go one step further. And we go one step further by looking at the importance to the customer. Which factors are more important to the customer? If you're buying a Gucci handbag, and I'm appealing again, sorry to the females of the audience, you wouldn't necessarily buy it from one store because it's £1 cheaper than the store next door. If you've got enough money to buy an original Gucci handbag, you won't mind whether it's £1 cheaper or not. You will be there for the quality of service from that store, the ambience of that store. It won't matter to you whether it's £1 cheaper. And likewise for a Ferrari, if you're buying a Ferrari, it won't matter whether it's £1 cheaper from that garage than it is from that garage. You will want the customer service. You will want to make you feel like a king or queen buying that Ferrari. So price, in that case, would not be a determining factor. So price is not always relevant, and it's important to identify whether it is or not. Because if you're competing and you're offering a lower price and it's not relevant, it won't matter. Why are you doing it? You're only ruining your own potential profits. So we try and get into the eyes of the customer if we haven't asked them already. Try and seek the viewpoints of your potential customers. If you already have customers, ask them. Really good if you can. And that's simply a benchmark. What we're looking for is items where you are strong, so you're scoring yourself highly, your competitors are scoring low, and your customers score equally highly on any particular factor. If you've got that, you have got a perfect place to compete in. What you don't want to do is compete where you are low, your competitors are high, and your customers see it as being high, because you are in the weakest possible position. So that's analysing our competitors. we take it one step further again by looking at the generic sector or industry we are in. Now, before we do that, we need to know the industry that we are in. We need to identify that. So, taking these as examples, what industry would you put them in? Let's take Odeon, cinemas. What industry would you put them in? Entertainment? I missed that, sorry. Service industry, potentially. But would you put Sky Movies in the same sector? Would you put it in entertainment? Would you put it in service? No. Would you put Blockbuster in the same? No, you'd probably put it under retail. So you can see how you could miss competitors by identifying the wrong sector. Now, chances are, and again, I'm appealing to the masses here rather than the minority. The design crafts people, you will very much be looking at retail. If that's the case, then it's very clear, because what you're trying to do is make stuff and sell it. So traditionally, that's fairly much retail. So you will be in an easy sector to analyse. For those of you that aren't in that area, try and work out which sector you're actually going to trade in, because that's the sector to identify. And then what we look at is some generic items, so the size and nature of the market, the geographics of that market. Now, remember that if you're only going to trade locally, if you're only trading in Leicester, only analyse Leicester. If you're trading nationally, analyse national figures. If you're trading internationally, analyse international figures. Bit more complicated, so I would stick probably to the maximum of national figures. So think about the geographics. Are there any hotspots to what you're doing? Are there any towns and cities that are particularly known for the industry sector you are in? Leicester is trying to, and unfortunately it wasn't very successful, pitch itself as a city of culture. Unfortunately, at 9:45 this morning, it was unsuccessful and it went to Hull. But if you're in the cultural sectors, being pitched as a city of culture is a great opportunity for you. Are there any particular barriers to entry of what you're trying to do? If you're trying to take on Coca-Cola as a cola-based drink, you're going to meet some economies of scale. They have massive bottling plants. They have massive distribution networks that you're never going to be able to come up against. So your prices are generally going to be higher. They have to be in order to achieve the same economies of scale. Are there any switching costs? And for those that don't know, switching costs are any of you got mobile phones on contract, not as pay as you go? On contract, if you choose to leave that contract early, you will have to pay to leave that contract. Yeah? It's all in your T's and C's, your terms and conditions. That's a switching cost. If you choose to switch your supplier, your mobile phone supplier, earlier than your contract allows, there is a cost to switch. That's simply all it is. So for some of you, maybe providing consultancy services, maybe providing a service-based organisation, the services supplied may already be under contract. So there would be a switching cost for potentially your potential customers to switch to you. Something that the company I work for has to fight against all the time. One of the biggest barriers to entry for you will be brand recognition, will be recognition of your business, will be recognition of your items versus what else is already out there. Other things we look at is the market growing or shrinking. There have been lots in the news at the moment about the economic conditions of the country. We've been in what has been a very deep recession, but now we're coming out of it. Certain sectors, certain industries are coming out of it faster than others. So where is your industry in terms of where it is coming out and how strong? And I've already talked about aspects of seasonality. So if your items are being sold as a gift occasion, then there are some great gift occasions out there that you should try and focus and target. There are things like target market share that we could look at. Target market share is looking at things like how is the overall market made up. If you can imagine a great big pie chart, we all know what a pie chart is. Take a great big pie and we cut it up into several slices, and the size of those slices is determined by how much share the competitors have. So if we did a pie chart for the cola industry, and I'm being very careful of not saying Coca-Cola industry, the cola industry, it would look as really 3 chunks. Coca-Cola taking a big chunk, which is around 49%. Pepsi taking a big chunk, which is around 48%. And the remaining 3% of that chunk will be divided very, 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 very finely by the other providers. So home brands like Tesco and Sainsbury's own cola, or the now more niche ones of your organics and your locally based cola producers. That's what a target market share diagram would look like. Now for most of you, it would be that 100% chopped up into a million different slices, because there will be lots of you out there that are replicating that target market share. However, for some of you that have less of a retail-based idea, there may be some significant some significant shares out there that would change that. The bigger the share, the more likely you are to steal it from these people. So if you were starting a cola-based drink, you are never going to take market share from Coca-Cola or significant market share from Coca-Cola. It's just not possible. So we look at it in terms of market share. Now market share shifts, and I'm going to do this next time actually, because I will need a board to demonstrate what is called the industry life cycle. Market share shifts based on the point in the life cycle that industry is. And again, the majority of you will be very much in what's known as a mature market, where there are very few new people coming in, there are very few new competitors coming in, and each competitor is fighting to retain that particular market share. But I'll talk about that next time, because I really need to do that graphically. So the wider world, and we talked about this last time, for those of you who are here, in terms of PESTLE, PEST, steeple, however you've heard of it in the past. And we look at these particular factors to see what's going on, to see what may change our success, may give us an opportunity for our success. So how do we go about doing this? Well, market research, there are 2 simple types. And I apologise for the business and law students in the room. You should know this. The art and design, I'm not sure whether you cover it in your degrees. So you've got primary research, basically doing stuff for yourself, gathering your own data. And then secondary research, using existing sources of market research that are out there. And as students, you have a wonderful opportunity of getting some great secondary market research. So on the library accounts via Athens, is it still Athens? Yeah, via your Athens account, you can access things like Keynote, Mintel, Fame. These are all great market reports, great opportunities for you to get market reports. Now, to get that data outside of being a student, it's about £2,500 a report. So take advantage of it while you can and while it's free. So that's secondary data all sewn up, really. Primary data, though, there are lots of different types. And you'll have seen questionnaires, traditionally used as postal. So there's a large-scale cost to that. We now look at it in terms of online, via email or sending the URL, sending the website link in an email. And SurveyMonkey is a great opportunity, not that I have shares in them or whatever, there are lots of others out there, but SurveyMonkey is a really simple thing to use in order to get very quick, very easy online market research for yourself. It's completely free to use, and very, very simple to start. I've done examples of which. So a typical product-based one, so for the design crafts, if you're selling products, so this is what a very, very, very basic questionnaire may look like. What do you like about our new product? What changes would improve it from your point of view? What do you like currently about competing products? What changes would competing products make them more appealable to you? Would you recommend it? And if you don't like it, why not? Very simple. 10 questions. Takes about 30 seconds to respond. And that's all it needs to be. It's a generic questionnaire, but that will give you some very significant information about people's views of your product. We can do it face to face. The downside of online, by the way, is you can't judge people's reactions. For those of you who know anything about body language, obviously you can't do that via email. Face-to-face allows you to do that, which is why a lot of the bigger companies will do face-to-face research. And as I said earlier, some of you may have already been accosted by researchers in the city centre. Focus groups. Another great opportunity to get significant data, significant live data about your products. And all marketing companies, all significant marketing companies do this all the time. Now again, if this works, please take it with the pinch of salt that it is. And I'm hoping this sound.
Today we're going to test various features on different smartphones. So have any of you used these models of smartphone before? Maya?
No.
No.
Nope.
No. Okay. So is this everybody's first focus group?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Does anyone know what the SMART in smartphone stands for?
I think I got it.
Brittany?
I think the smart smartphone means like maybe the phone's more intelligent than you are, so that it can, if you're not if you're not tech savvy, then the phone is more tech savvy than you.
Let's grab your phones and let's go to video mode. Hit your bell. When you're in video mode, hit your bell.
I guess
What does that mean?
it's my allegiance to the dark side.
Everybody, let's go into video mode. Point your cameras at Mr. Frog. Okay? Zoom on Mr. Frog. Who was able to zoom in on Mr. Frog? Hit your bell.
So apologies for that. It's a bit flippant, and it's really simply for comedic value rather than anything else. So if we're going to do our own research, there are some steps that we need to get into. And really the first one is to decide what we want to know. What question do we want answered? Now in research theory, we form a hypothesis that we test. And generally you form a negative hypothesis to get a positive result, I think, if I remember my own market research master's module. So we need to find out, we need to decide what the exact question is that we want to find out. We then decide the type of research that we'd like to use that's most appropriate for our products, most appropriate for the question we're asking. We test the questionnaires or the focus group questions or whatever it might be, test it with your friends before you go public with it. Refine it, make any necessary changes you need to make. And then obviously go ahead and do it. We then analyse the results and we shape our products, we shape our services, we shape how we market them based on the information that we've got. Secondary research, which we've discussed or I've mentioned briefly, these are fantastic. I can't underestimate how good those are. There are also a wide variety of other sources that you can get hold of online. So the Chamber of Commerce do very, very good local market reports. The City Council will do very, very good local market reports. Lots of stuff you can get from your library, from various government agencies as well, BIS being one of them. To summarise, market research, I think, is probably one of the most key things people need to do to start a business. It's where, if you ask people like Amy and any of the CEO team, any of the CEO advisors, it's where most businesses fail right at the start. They've developed an idea without knowing A, whether there's a market for it, or B, enough about their competition in order to sell it successfully. It is the first stage as a consultant, as an advisor, of the many years I've done it, that I ask people in the startup process to go through. Find out who your competitors are before you go to market. Find out what your customers will want, your potential customers will want, before you go to market. It's mainly concerned about information. Gathering information about your competitors, gathering information about your industry and your products, the reaction to your products, whether that be from potential customers or whether that be from potential competitors. It will help you shape how you market your products, how you sell your products. Some of you will have heard there are two great examples from DMU CEO department over the last few years. One of them has really, really gone well. The other one struggled and struggled and struggled and eventually failed. The reason was, for both of them, is that the market would not accept buying things online. The one that failed, Head and Griffiths, and I hate to mention the chaps, they were two really, really good chaps. However, they were selling bespoke tailored suits for men online. And it relied upon men measuring themselves, putting their measurements into an online database. Out popped a tailored suit 2 weeks later. That was great. However, the barrier to men measuring themselves was really quite significant. And there was a trust aspect there. So it just wasn't suitable for online. They changed their model as they went on, and they did tailoring events, and that was slightly more successful. The one that did make it, though, was Kindred Soul. And again, most of you have probably heard either me talking about them or DMU talking about them. And this was shoe retail, female shoe retail online. Now, there are difficulties to that. How do you get over the quality of shoes online? How do you get over the comfort of shoes online? How do you get over the feeling and that experience of touching them, of trying them on, which you would get in a store? But they did very well on that. They demonstrated that very well on their website. So they are now working and doing very, very well. They were nominated a couple of years ago for Independent Footwear Retailer of the Year, National Footwear Retailer of the Year. So they got over the barrier of how people would buy their items. Head and Griffiths didn't. So consider what barriers there might be to where you sell your items, and this is where market research will help. Market research, as we've said, can be gathered either by yourself, primary resource, or by using other people's resource, secondary resources. That's me finished, and then the next session on this program is going to be an introduction to marketing, and that's next year, end of January, 29th of January. And I think that's all the messages we have, bar just a quick reminder about the Enterprise Society that is now at DMU, a student-run society designed to support what we class as peer-to-peer business startup advice and guidance. Does anyone have any questions while I'm here? No? If you could fill out the feedback forms and hand it back to either Stacey or Amy, that would be very much appreciated. I don't get to see them, so if you want to be abusive, then please feel free. I hope you don't. Thank you for coming today. If you need to speak to me, then please feel free to grab me now.